Hi guys, welcome to my channel and welcome to another video. If you're new here, my name is Mngomezulu, also known as Gwazi Bear. On all social media platforms, do subscribe, be a part of this family, and if you're returning subby, welcome back, darling. Now we're back in court.
And I'm bad like the Barbie. I'm a doll, but I still wanna party. Being felt like I'm ready to bend. I'm a 10, so I pull in a 10. Like Jazzy, Stacy, Pinky, all of the Barbies is pretty. Damn, all of the Barbies is bad.
So basically, guys, the last time we left off, it was agreed that the state and the defense would submit their heads of arguments. So we took a 2-week break, and we would then come back on the 4th of March to hear the arguments. So let's get right into these court proceedings. So on the 4th of March, when we returned in court, we were expecting fireworks. We were expecting the state to come and submit their arguments. Some of us didn't even know what heads of arguments are, but we were just ready. Lalela, sasi ready. The 4th came, and there was a long delay in court, basically on the 4th, only for Mngomezulu to drop a bomb on us, okay, where he says that he has been notified that legal aid will not be paying for his services to represent accused number 1 and 2. And so therefore he had started preparing his arguments, however didn't complete, because I mean, why would you complete your arguments when you're told straight up that you're not going to get paid? So he then says that he was then approached by the uncle of accused number 1 being Umuzisbia, and they basically told Mngomezulu that they still require his services and they are prepared to pay him for his services. So now this is drama, because that means that Mngomezulu is now representing accused number 1, not via legal aid, and he's representing him with the family paying Mngomezulu, right? With that being said, Mngomezulu then says he'd like to reopen the trial within a trial so that he is able to call some witnesses for accused number 1. Now, this is where things just went crazy in court, because Mngomezulu dropped a bomb. A cliche bomb, basically. So the judge then questions how long is it going to take for him to be able to call witnesses and so forth, and when are these services actually starting? Mngomezulu then says he is with immediate effect representing accused number 1. He wants to reopen the trial. He has some witnesses that he needs to call, and so forth, right? So he then says the witnesses that he is going to call are members of the SAPS, and they go into the conversation with regards to the subpoena that needs to be sent to these people, and the judge then asks who these witnesses are, and Mngomezulu mentions the likes of Warrant Officer Makhubo, General Lishabane, and General Sibiya. Right. Baloyi's argument is that this is an unsatisfactory state of affairs. It must be argued. Mngomezulu hasn't consulted with these witnesses, and the judge is like, no. My understanding is that Mngomezulu has already spoken to these witnesses. They're ready to go, so let's do this. And Baloyi basically argues that he doesn't understand what contribution these witnesses will have in the trial within a trial. Now, my chat is, you don't even know what these witnesses are going to say. Why are you panicking? Why are you panicking? Judge then asked the opinion of Advocate Ngumalo for accused number 4, Sholo for accused number 5, as well as Munyeke, who is standing in for Advocate Mnisi, to basically view their opinions with regards to this. And they just say, you know, if Mngomezulu says it's necessary that these witnesses are called, then let's reopen the case and let's do that. Okay, so the judge then makes a ruling that the witnesses will be called. They should be available by Wednesday. And the funny thing is that, from our knowledge, Mngomezulu had his own court appearance that he had on Wednesday. So when he had basically submitted to the judge that he wants to reopen the trial within the trial, he had asked for the postponement to be until Thursday. The judge ruled that Wednesday he wants those witnesses in court, and so the the case was postponed to Wednesday, the 6th of March. On the 6th of March, we were back in court. There was a bit of a hold-up with the accused, with them arriving to court. And then after that was done, when they arrived in court, then Ramusipili basically addressed the court with the issue of legal aid, saying that basically the termination of Mngomezulu's mandate was not done in good cause, which I don't understand. I mean, if you're not going to pay Mngomezulu, what do you expect him to do? Work for free? No. And also they're saying that this will jeopardize basically accused number one's application for legal aid in future, because what if he's not able to afford Mngomezulu and all those sort of things. That issue was addressed, and then Mngomezulu basically just tells the court, you know what, it's the first time I'm hearing about this, and basically consults with accused number one, and they both agree that let's just go on. Whatever happens in the future, we'll figure it out in the future. So Baloyi then stands up and he says no, he's opposing this application to open the trial within a trial, and he basically says that on Monday he thought that when they postponed the case on Monday, it was so that they could sort out the legal aid issue. But my chat is that the judge specifically said those witnesses must be in court on Wednesday. So why are you lying and saying that you thought that we were talking about legal aid? Why is Baloyi so on the edge with regards to the witnesses that are being called? Anyway, the judge then just says, you know what? I've made my ruling. I'm overruling what you're saying, and I'm saying these witnesses should be called, so bring them on. So Mngomezulu then calls Warrant Officer Makhubo to the stand, and guys, when I say court was burning, okay? So Makhubo basically testifies. He tells us that he's a member of the DPCI, which is the crime investigating unit, basically called the Hawks. So he's been dealing with cases and so on and so forth. He then lets us know that he was appointed to investigate case 636, which is the case that we're currently dealing with in court. So he says he was appointed with 3 other members, so there were 4 people who were appointed to investigate this case. It was himself, it was General Lishabane, it was Gininda, as well as I forgot the other officer now. I think it's Ramukhale. It was Ramukhale. He basically tells us how he got involved, when he got involved, and he says that this case was allocated to them in 2018. Now, this is interesting for me because when Gininda came to court to testify, he says that this case was given to his cold case unit in 2019. So how is it that Gininda says he was given this case in 2019 when he was part of the team that was allocated this case in 2018? Gininda? Anyway, he then goes on to just give his evidence, and the main thing about his evidence is that when they investigated the case in 2019, in March, he received a call from Lishabane saying that they have a lead with regards to the Senzo Meyiwa case. He was called to Kleurkop. Now, if you remember the evidence of Sibiya, accused number 1, he does say that it wasn't the first time that he was arrested and questioned with regards to the Senzo Meyiwa case. The first time he was arrested was in 2019. Now, basically, Lishabane has come to court and corroborated the version of accused number 1 by saying, yes, this person was definitely arrested. I was called, and when we did our little investigations or our interviews with him, I concluded that this person has nothing to do with this case. And from what I know, he was supposed to be released because he never appeared in court for this case. He was meant to be released. Now, guys, the interesting thing about this, now that I'm actually putting 2 and 2 together, is that Sibiya has recently been sentenced for the drug case, right? And when I'm putting 2 and 2 together, Sibiya, when he was arrested on the Senzo Meyiwa case in 2019, they were meant to let him go. Please excuse my son there in the corner. Bandi, Okay, so he was told he was meant to be let go, but he wasn't. They then took him to a police station and opened a drug case against him, but later let him go, only for them to arrest him a year later. And on the drug case. So now even the drug case is suspicious. As he leads his evidence in court, Makhubo, basically we find out that, okay, so now not only was Sibiya telling the truth about his arrest in 2019, we have a cop that can corroborate this evidence. And two, clearly Sibiya's arrest was wrongful, because you cannot be arrested for the same case, be released, and then now all of a sudden you've got a drug case that you had nothing to do with, or you didn't know, you had no knowledge of, and here we are. So basically Makhubo gave his evidence, and it was very surprising. It revealed a lot, because now not only are we aware that Makhubo is still the investigating officer for 636. He's also the investigating officer for 375, and he was never fired. So basically, he's still part of the investigating team. And when he's asked about Mohola and Mohane, who are part of the cold case unit, who were responsible for the same case, he says no. There were only 4 people that were appointed to actually investigate this case, and also we don't even have a cold case unit in the police. Shubiyani. Okay, once the evidence of Makhubo was done, Baloyi then cross-examined Makhubo, and in his cross-examination basically touched on some of the aspects of the evidence that Makhubo has brought in. Right after that, he didn't ask too many questions. It was just a few questions. Right after that, Baloyi says he was ready to argue. So on the 6th, Baloyi started with his heads of arguments. And to be honest, I don't know what I was expecting from the heads of arguments, but it didn't give. Like, Baloyi's heads were just cold. They didn't give. I felt like he was just quoting too much of what the defense is going to say in their argument, as opposed to trying to convince the court that his case is solid. Now, I'm not a legal expert or of legal mind, but when you have a case, you need to make sure that your case is solid and stop trying to discredit the other case or the defense case so much. You understand? So he did his arguments. It took a while. It was very boring, very repetitive. And basically, that was the end of the proceedings for the 6th of March. On the 7th of March, Baloyi continued with his arguments. And basically, in his arguments, I recall him mentioning the tactics that were used by the investigators to arrest the accused on a certain case only to investigate another case. He even went as far as mentioning the AKA case, which is currently ongoing. But basically, he then goes on to say accused number 2's version has been altered according to AVL, and so forth and so forth. He basically just went on and on and on throughout the day. And he talks about the OB entries. Most of the stuff was very repetitive. And he was then done with his arguments. Now, today is the 8th of March, and this is what went down in court. So Baloyi completed his arguments, and once that was done, we then allowed the interpreter to interpret everything from the time Baloyi started his arguments right through to the end of his arguments. Then after that was done, Mngomezulu came up and he basically submitted his arguments. Now, if I say Mngomezulu was impressive, because not only did he have everything up here, he had no paper in front of him, literally, when leading his arguments, but each point was on point. It was hitting the marks, okay? One of the most important things that he touched on was the fact that accused number 1's drug case and how he was arrested and how it was unlawful, how the warrant of arrest was unlawful. He even went as far as quoting certain cases to prove that the way in which the J50 warrant of arrest was obtained was illegal, it was irregular, and all that. He then went on and he spoke about the assault. He spoke about the facts of the case, and then he quoted certain sections like section 217. He quoted certain cases like the Maposa versus Minister of Police. He also went as far as touching on the issues of the appointment of a peace officer. So he was just basically rebutting the fact that Rapadu, Mboto were actually in a position to take these confessions in the first place, which was, to me, lit. And then after that, he then went on to talk about how Kininda, the way in which Kininda got the J50s for this particular case on the 26th of October was also irregular, because Kininda left out certain information with regards to the accused. So basically, he went to go get a warrant of arrest for the accused when they were already in prison. And he seemed to leave out that very important information. So he basically argues that the J50s were obtained illegally or irregularly. And also, there was a lot, guys. And also, he also talked about the intimidation of the officers when they were carrying their guns. So he basically says, even Magistrate Cronier says she was intimidated, or she was fearful of the officers that brought Untanzi in. So if the magistrate herself was intimidated by those officers, how much more was accused number 2 intimidated by the officers that brought him in for that confession? That was a very valid point. And then what else? We touched on the issue of Umchiako, and when he touched on the issue of Umchiako, what irritated me a bit about the judge is that he says, no, you didn't bring Umchiako and as your witness, and Mngomezulu just put that right on hold and said, no, listen, the onus is on the state to prove their case beyond reasonable doubt. So if they wanted to prove that Mchiako was in fact representing accused number 2, they should have called him. But the fact that they didn't leaves a lot to the imagination. Okay, and then we spoke about the issue of AVL. Now this one, he hit the nail. So in the state's case, or in the defense case, sorry, because he says, Untanzi was in a situation where he was arrested, he was scared, he's not familiar with these areas he was taken to, but yet he was still able to say, I went near an engine garage, I saw a board written Alberton, I saw a board written Orlando. So just by saying those things, you would assume that he's in Orlando. And if he wasn't in Orlando, as per AVL says, the board that he saw was written Orlando, unlike the officers that have come as witnesses who were writing everything down, who have AVL to back them up with regards to where they were and everything. But Untanzi's mind and recollection of things is not going to be accurate, but he is still consistent and his evidence is still backed up. Argues the point about the Bara hospital incident and how AVL was unlocked by a bridge, and he says no, that bridge is after the gate, so they need to account for the 10 minutes before the bridge as to what happened there at Bara Gate. He argues the issue of the AVL and the Toyota Fortuna being parked at the Benoni garage, whereas other witnesses say that was the car that was used on that particular day. That was spot on. He argued the point about the dentist and his primary mission was to find if there was a gold tooth Gundanzi, not to check for injuries. So that argument was closed down. And then lastly, he goes on to the injuries that were on Umuzisbiya, the swollen wrist, which Umboto confirmed, which Mngomezulu was just on point, guys. So those were the proceedings for today. On Monday, we will continue with the arguments of Ramusupile and the rest of the defense counsels. It's lit. So those were the proceedings of the week. It was very interesting. And if these confessions are used, honestly, I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. And also, if you're following the case, please engage with me in the comment section and tell me what your thoughts are down below. I will see you guys next week, Friday, when I give you an update on what went down the whole week.